All right, Penn State loses 24-15. What a weird score that is to the Michigan Wolverines. I don't know where to start with this game. By the way, I'm Connor Griffin. I should probably start saying that at the beginning of episodes because I know there are probably people tuning in for the first time. And I've done a couple of these so far. I apologize if you are one of the people tuning into this for the first time, this post-game reaction podcast, because this is not going to be a good one. First of all, the game was terrible from the Penn State fan perspective. And I just have no coherent thoughts, really. I have thoughts. I have a lot of them. I have a lot of pent up emotion, but I have not written anything down. I have no notes. I'm just going totally off the cuff here. This is going to be a 30-minute, maybe 20-minute, but probably 30-minute rant. Just me rambling on about Penn State football. It'll be a therapy session for me. Maybe there will be Penn State fans who also find it to be a little bit of a therapy session for them too. And then I'm sure there will be some Michigan fans who will take great joy in seeing me suffer, because that's what I'm doing right now. This is, I would say, the worst feeling that I've ever experienced as a Penn State fan in my lifetime, because it's not just anger and it's not just sadness and it's not just disappointment. It's embarrassment. That game today was embarrassing. There's no other way to put it. And I've stayed off of Twitter because as of right now, everybody is just roasting Penn State and roasting James Franklin. And it's deserved. It is well deserved. I thought that after the Ohio State game, we'd have some stuff figured out. Last week, yes, I know it was Maryland. I thought maybe there was some stuff discovered in that game that we could carry over into this one. And in the second half, you wound up in a situation where, yeah, it was just Ohio State 2.0. It was the exact same game. They were giving you opportunities to win it, and your offense was anemic. And not to go on, and it's not even like bragging because I'm bragging about my football team being dog shit. Apologies for cursing. That might happen a couple of times. But I was so right about the Ohio State game. I said, yes, Ohio State played a great game defensively. But this is more of an indictment on how terrible our offense is. Our offense has major problems, and nobody wanted to, and when I say nobody wanted to accept it, Penn State fans knew it, I believe. But nationally, or the people I talked to who weren't fans of the team, they're just kind of, I don't want to say casual football fans, but they're just kind of keeping a bird's eye view on everything that's happening. They're not actually paying attention to what's going on. I was telling them, the offense is nowhere near where it needs to be. We went through the first 6 games of the season where we were just bland and basic and vanilla. And you thought, okay, well, they're probably just holding off on a lot of stuff until we get to the deeper competition down the road, when we get to the Ohio States, when we get to the Michigans. And then you watch that Ohio State game and you said to yourself, oh my God, no, like we're just that basic, bland, vanilla offense that we've been all season. Like, this is it. This is the ceiling. And nobody wanted to believe. Everybody was like, oh, well, Connor, Ohio State is a great defense. Surely you guys are going to figure stuff out. I think you guys are still really good. I was, no, dude, like we're not where we need to be offensively. And it stems from the receivers. The receivers are god awful. And you saw it again today. This is one note I did have. Our best receiver today was Dante Cephas. He had 2 receptions for 11 yards. And I can't wait for people to say, oh, well, it's because Drew Aller is throwing to him. We'll get to that in a second, too. But everybody was like, oh, yeah, Connor, the Ohio State game, that was an anomaly. Like, you guys are going to come back. You guys got a shot against Michigan. I was telling you this entire time, no. And people got on me, and people were saying, Connor, how could you do this? You're, usually this guy who's such a homer and such a psycho fan. I'm not a homer at all when it comes to this stuff. I'm realistic. I said last year, we're going to be pretty solid. We're probably going to win 10 games, but we're losing to Ohio State and Michigan. I said that coming into the year. I held that the entire season. This year, I said we're better than we were last year, at least on paper, but we're not going to beat both Ohio State and Michigan. We're going to split. And if there is a shot to beat one of the 2 teams, it's going to come against Ohio State. And I did say, guarantee, yes, that Penn State was going to win against Ohio State, which my prediction was wrong. My assessment of that game, again, was correct. You can make Ohio State one-dimensional. You can put the ball in Kyle McCord's hands, and the offense isn't going to be that great. He's lucky he has Marvin Harrison Jr., the most elite receiver in college football, because he's the ultimate get-out-of-jail-free card. But even that, you could kind of contain Marvin Harrison, and he had the yards, but they were empty yards. He didn't get into the end zone until late in the fourth quarter when we had already given up on the game. We were desperate. We went for it on fourth down in our own territory, deep within our own territory, gave Ohio State a short field. That's when he ultimately came alive. It was actually a very similar scenario to what happened today when Blake Corum finally got that long touchdown run. For the most part, we had bottled them up. Like, the defense did their job. And you hoped that the offense could then step up and just be slightly productive, do something in both of these games, Ohio State and Michigan. Ohio State, they were anemic the entire game. And for everybody who was saying, oh, well, it's because the Ohio State defense was so staggering. Look what happened the next week when we played Indiana. Tell me that it was more so because the Ohio State defense is so good than it was that our offense sucks. The offense is terrible right now. Yeah, offense couldn't do anything against Ohio State, couldn't do anything in the second half today, even though, for the most part, I thought they played pretty solid in the first half. I'm not sure exactly what happened, what changed. I don't know if there was ever a point in the game where I thought that we were going to win, but I definitely had some hope. I definitely had more hope than I did against Ohio State. And we just completely faltered. It was an absolute coaching meltdown. We had no star players to rely on late in the game. We had no crutch, no out pitch, as Joel Klatt, said on the broadcast. There was just no savior. There was nothing that could have helped us win that game, because even though, yes, the defense had done a nice job of bottling up Michigan, offensively, who do you turn to? There's nobody. And the play calling was bad too. We'll get to that as well. But I just touched on the defense a little bit. I do want to talk about the defense here. This is a very confusing game for Manny Diaz and overall this defensive unit. I don't know if they did play a phenomenal game today, keeping Michigan to that low of a total. And then, yeah, as I mentioned, you had Blake Corum, who escaped free late in the game when the game we had already accepted was over. But at the same time, they were exposed a little bit in the first half. First quarter, I thought, was the best defensive quarter I've ever seen Penn State play. They were sensational in the first quarter. Then Michigan makes some adjustments. They start rolling out that big 7 offensive lineman package that they had not shown at all this year, by the way. That was the first time they ran it. They were waiting to run it against us because they know it tortured us last year. And we still weren't ready for it. Even though this entire offseason, we knew they have that in their arsenal, and it killed us last year. It worked. It worked again this year against Penn State. I don't know why they abandoned it. But yeah, they just started becoming very conservative offensively once they were able to reel off those long runs, once they were able to get into the end zone, once they were able to pick up. There were 3 huge third down conversions on 3rd and long. One of them went for a touchdown by Donovan Edwards in the second quarter. Those were critical plays in the game. That Donovan Edwards touchdown run, I think you could count as one of the 2 or 3 biggest plays of the game, because it was so deflating. And yeah, Penn State wound up going into the half, scoring a touchdown, but you could have stopped Michigan from taking a lead, and you didn't. Or at the very least, I forget where it was in the game. You could have stopped them from padding on to the lead, and it could have been a much smaller margin throughout this entire game if he does not score that touchdown, if you just buckle up and don't get out-coached on 3rd down. That's pretty much what it was. It was a great play call on all 3 of those 3rd and longs that went for first downs. Great play calls where they knew what Manny Diaz wanted to do, and they countered it. And I don't know if there was a point in this game where you could say that Manny Diaz countered what Michigan was doing, because once they took a lead, they just decided to not throw the football, and they were just going to run it. And again, they pretty much abandoned that jumbo package where you had all those 7 offensive linemen, big, bulky guys. They kind of abandoned it, and they just were running conservative right up the gut. They did reel off a couple big ones, but for the most part, it was contained because they were very uncreative play calls. I think it was the last pass that J.J. McCarthy had was at 7 minutes and 42 seconds left in the second quarter. I want to say that's accurate. I think that's what I saw on Twitter. So, I don't know how to grade the defense in this game because Michigan clearly said, okay, we got a lead and we're going to be able to sustain it by just running this very basic offense. And if we do give it back to Penn State, good luck trying to do anything because we know you're not going to be able to. And that's pretty much how the game went. And the strategy worked to a T. I don't think there was ever a point after the first quarter where this Michigan defense was, or pardon me, this Michigan offense had pressure on them or where they were uncomfortable. I thought we got after McCarthy early. I thought it was a perfect way to start the game. And if the offense had been able to do anything with it and capitalize, then yeah, we would have seen JJ McCarthy have to get back there and throw. And who knows what that leads to for us defensively. That's where we could be more aggressive. That's where we could be more opportunistic. Instead, we wound up in a situation where, yeah, the only turnovers we were going to get were going to be forced fumbles. If we're trying to strip the football, if we're trying to get a crown on the top of the helmet onto the nose of the football, like that's all we had as a chance to create turnovers. And that has been, not, I don't want to say our bread and butter defensively throughout this entire season, but that's been a big part of this defense is being chaotic, being all over the field and creating turnovers. Couldn't do that today. And for the record, going back to the Ohio State game and why I think that, or why I thought that the better shot of us splitting was to beat Ohio State was because you could be more opportunistic in that game. Michigan is a far more balanced team. And last year, too, I mean, they barely turned the ball over last year. They're balanced. They're safe with the football. They don't have to do much to beat you. And if you do shut down a part of their game, okay, well, they got plenty of other weapons and plenty of other ways that they could beat you. I don't think you could say that about Ohio State. But yeah, from that point on, in the second quarter, when Michigan just committed to running the football, you knew the defense was going to get stops. And it's on the offense to now finally do something with the football and put some pressure on McCarthy and that offense on the other side of the field. Our offense did nothing once again after the Ohio State game. It's just a bummer. So I don't know how to grade the defense, but getting into the offense, I mean, my God, dude, my God, this is where I'm going to go on a rant and I'm not going to be able to control myself. I've gotten into it so many times throughout this season with people over Drew Aller. And I'm already starting to do it again after this game. Are there throws that could be better? Yes. Are there a lot of throws that could be better that are in the fourth quarter after we've already punted on winning the game and we're desperate and the game's already over and it doesn't matter and we're trying to throw to crappy receiver? Yeah, there are a lot of those throws too. So if you want to point to one of those, great. That's fine. Sure, let it be your argument. I am still in the camp. This is nowhere near being Drew Aller's fault as to why this offense sucks. Could he be better? Yeah. Everybody on this offense could be better, for the record. But the main source of frustration comes from the fact that the receivers are the worst receivers that we've had, maybe ever, under Franklin. Because at least in the sanction years, you had guys like an Allen Robinson or a Chris Godwin or Deshaun Hamilton. And then, of course, we kind of come out of the sanction years with the Big Ten championship team. And, you know, we get up and running with guys like Gesicki. And then we had Jahan Dotson and KJ Hamler. And you had all these. Even last year, we had Mitchell Tinsley. Mitchell Tinsley, people sleep on it. And Parker Washington. I don't think that Parker Washington, as I said in the previous video, should ever be a number one receiver on a team. But he was damn good. And Mitchell Tinsley was a very reliable receiver. Who is the one person on this offense who Drew Aller can throw to? It's probably going to be a tight end. But of course, the tight ends, they can't really operate and do their thing if the defense is so far up and so much stack in the box against a team that can't throw the football to their receivers. That's what happened in this game. You saw gradually throughout the course of the game, Michigan just kept creeping up and up and up. And it makes it incredibly difficult for a tight end to run their short routes if the defense is just completely there and not expanded at all. So, yeah, I mean, I guess maybe Tyler Warren or Theo Johnson is the crutch, but he does not have one person who, as I said earlier, is an out pitch. And it's you can't watch this game. I don't know how anybody could watch this game and say, oh, yeah, Drew is the problem. It blows my mind when people say that. We threw the ball deep once, and it was to Keandre Lambert-Smith, and he didn't even run the route. He gave up on the route halfway through. Yeah, I'm not getting this. We don't have one guy. I don't even want to call it a 50-50 scenario. We don't have one guy where you just chuck it deep and you can trust that they're going to go up and at least make a play. And when I say make a play, I'm not even talking about catching the football. I'm just saying make it close, or at the very least draw pass interference. We don't have a single guy like that on this roster. Again, I keep saying again, and I'm alluding to previous videos, so I apologize to people who are just seeing me for the first time. A guy like Saeed Blacknall, oh my God, I'd take him in a heartbeat over any of these guys. And he was what, the third or fourth option? Probably the fourth option on that Big Ten championship team. I'd take him any day of the week. We don't have a single person, dude, who you can trust. And I think that was, the play calling was atrocious. Once again, even after the Ohio State game, there was no improvement in the second half. Same problems that plagued us from a play calling perspective. But I do think part of the issue today was that, yeah, they did not trust the receivers at all. And it put Drew Aller in a very precarious situation where it all stems back to the receivers, because the opposing defenses don't respect the passing game. Once again, they play up and they're stacking the box, and it puts pressure on the offensive line. And then Drew Aller, it's hard for him to have a clean pocket, and everything is thrown off, the internal clock, everything. You can't put this on Drew. You can't put this on Drew. If he had a guy like a Jahan Dotson or a KJ Hamler or any of those guys, I think he could be the best quarterback that we've had in years. But he doesn't. And the play calling and this system is not conducive to his talents. He's got a rocket of an arm. And we have no way of showing it. It's brutal. It's brutal to watch. And again, he could be better. He could be. And he'll probably say post-game that he sucked today and he could be better. You can't pin this all on him, dude. You can't. The running backs, I thought they played a very, very solid game today. One of their best games of the year. But they're still not explosive. They're still not what they were last year. That was one thing that Clifford had last year. He had a competent running game that could not only sustain long drives and at least chew clock, like they could win you the game. I wouldn't say our running backs could win you the game this year. Nick Singleton, still, we're 10 games into the season now. He's not bursting off any long runs. Once more, it goes back to the receivers. Their deficiencies are causing defenses to play us entirely different, and it makes it so much more difficult for everybody else on the team. The O-line, the tight ends, the running backs, the quarterback. So if you're Drew Aller, okay, I have two very solid running backs, but as we saw today, we're not using them creatively necessarily. We're just kind of running them up the gut, and eventually they will be stopped. And when that happens, it's on me to throw these piss poor receivers open against a defense that is playing us in a way that where it's not possible. It's not possible to throw these guys open. And I know people are going to say that, well, Connor, did you see that play to Caden Saunders where he threw it behind him? Yes, there were 2 or 3 plays in this game that I'm sure he would like back. But overall, dude, everything in this game, those plays included, were impacted by us just being a subpar offense. The offense is nowhere near where we need it to be. And if we had won this game and we had made it to the Big Ten championship game and we went to the playoff, I would have zero faith that we would be able to play against Bama or Georgia or an Oregon. Zero faith. Because our offense is just anemic. And for anybody who's saying, oh, it's because the opposing defenses are really good, go check out the Indiana game. As I said, my God, it's just terrible to watch. Yurcich, hot seat. And here's where I struggle with the coaching staff, because Franklin, we know that he's locked up. for a long time under his contract, and it would cost a lot of money to get rid of him. So I don't think he's going anywhere, and we'll get to that in a second. What hurts with Yurcich is I want him gone. I think he's done enough this year to prove that he's just not it. We need a change. But he is the reason why we have Drew Aller. And if we get rid of him, what happens with Drew Aller? This is clearly a guy that Drew is comfortable with, has known him for years, came to Penn State because of him. If Yurcich gets fired or goes elsewhere, does Aller stay? Does he take it harshly? Like what happens there? I don't know the extent of their relationship. I don't know if it's kind of dicey right now. It beats me. But that is something to keep an eye on, even though, yes, I do believe that Yurcich should be out of here. We still got Drew. And that's kind of his baby, essentially. That's his boy. So I don't know exactly how that's going to work out. But the Ohio State game and the Michigan game, from a play calling perspective, maddening. Even the drive where we scored that touchdown going into halftime, I was stunned by every single play call. Some worked out, some didn't. And every single play, I was just gasping for breath. Like, what did I just watch? What the hell was that? And then I don't know if this is more so Yurcich or more so Franklin. I'm imagining it's more so Franklin. But we were so all over the place with when we were choosing to go for it, what plays we then rolled out. And it was maddening too. That might have been even more maddening because I appreciated the fact that we were aggressive, but we were aggressive in the wrong ways, if that makes sense. You knew coming into this game, we were going to have to throw the kitchen sink at them. We got to just let it rip. This is going to be the game that defines not just this year, but the next couple of years potentially. And if you didn't leave it out on the field today, all out on the field today, then that's a mistake because you need to win this game. So I appreciated how they were coming out and they were changing things up a little bit, but they abandoned a lot of what was working to an extent. I think, for example, not to bring back up Bo Prabula, that worked last game. Why aren't we bringing that out in a 2-point conversion? Why are we going to this crazy formation where we have all the offensive linemen lined up to the left sideline and then all of our eligible receivers to the right? Drew Aller back there with zero protection at all. And we're just going to try and do this, tiddlywink, whoop-de-doo play. You can't. What are you doing? We have the Bo Prabula package that worked last week, and we were wondering where the hell it was in the Ohio State game. Well, okay, we showed it last week. Well, we'll see it this week. Nope. Totally forgot about it. Some of the decisions to go for it instead of punting it came back to bite us, most notably the last one. Like, there's a time and a place to pull that stuff out. I don't know if we did it at the right time and place in this game. And especially once you get desperate late in the game and you're down and you really need something to get you back in. If you pull out a trick play or you pull out a fourth down going for it on your own territory and it doesn't work out, yeah, you're opening yourself up to just massive embarrassment, massive criticism. So I just don't think it was handled well at all by the coaching staff. And it's really an indictment on them. This game, like the Ohio State game, is on them. We have the players. We have the talent. This is the most talented team that I've ever seen from Penn State, on paper at least. The receivers are garbage. But everywhere else, it's the best offensive line under Franklin. It's the best running back duo we've had in a long time. The tight end group, they're really solid. The defense is probably the best defense that I've seen as a Penn State fan ever. Drew Aller came in as a 5-star quarterback, the best recruit we've ever had, the best quarterback in the country, had a full year had a full year last year where he played in 10 games and was looking great and had so much promise coming to this year. For what? We get into these big games and we are holding them back with horrific game plans, poor choices, poor decisions in key points of the game. And it's just a bummer. It really is a bummer because you know that we should be winning a game like this today. I'm not saying that this Michigan team we were better than, because clearly we were not. And I do think, again, they're the best team in college football. They were last year. They're even better this year. This was not supposed to be the game that we were supposed to win. But you created the situation where this needed to be the game that we won. It needed to be today, because the game where you really had the better matchup and you were playing the weaker opponent, even though it was on the road in Ohio State, you screwed that one up. You screwed it up entirely. So, yes, this was never supposed to be the season today. We were never supposed to beat Michigan, at least in my eyes. But that's the corner you backed yourself into. And you needed to beat Michigan, and you had the talent to at least hang around or at least make it competitive and make it a real game in the fourth quarter. And instead, coaching winds up getting in the way, and we just give the game away. And when I say that, that's not to say that, we should have won. That's just to say any chance we had of winning, we gave that away. Again, Michigan didn't throw a single pass the entire second half. The entire second half. They were giving you every opportunity to beat them. They were saying, we're just going to run the football. Stop it. Okay, we'll give it back to you. But, all your offense is garbage. So do whatever you want to do. We have full faith in our defense being able to stop you. And our offense couldn't do anything to subvert that, couldn't do anything to prove them wrong. Our play callers were garbage. And when I say play callers, I mean Yurcich. And Franklin sits here now with another 2-loss season. His most disappointing one by a mile. I don't see anything that we could do to get rid of him. I'm not saying we should get rid of him, but my entire perception of him has changed over the last month. Less than that, last 3 weeks. I don't know if I'm going to ever have faith in him to win these big games. Because as I said in my preseason preview, I have given him passes. I've been able to make excuses for him. He got here at a terrible time for the program, dealt with the biggest brunt of the sanctions, more than O'Brien, and was able to come out of it with a Big Ten championship, and was able to rack up these insane recruiting classes and brought the program back to a relevant level, back to being a part of the conversation pretty much every single year outside of the COVID years. And even though, yes, we were losing to Ohio State and Michigan, I could chalk it up and say, you know what, we're still kind of dealing with the sanctions back in 2017, 2018. We were finally fully getting out of it. We're still behind with facilities. We're still behind in recruiting, even though we put together a couple of good classes like Ohio State and Michigan. They're just way up there. NIL, eventually when that came around in 2021, okay, we were behind in that. There's more buy-in from the community and from the administration at schools like Ohio State and Michigan. We're not getting the approval or the yeses and the green lights that we need to get. Then, of course, Pat Kraft comes in, Neely Bendaputi comes in. That changes. We're getting green lights on anything. Facilities improve. NIL, we make up ground there. Everything. We get the best coaching staff we've ever had because we're able to put together a bigger staff and pay more for our staff. We get all these recruiting classes that are insane. We're getting a top-notch recruit in Drew Aller, the best one in the country, one of the best we've ever had in program history. Everything is coming together, and it results in nothing. It results in nothing. Again, I could give him passes before. There are no more passes. This is the year where there is not much of a gap between us and Ohio State. And in terms of talent, I wouldn't say there's a huge gap between us and Michigan. But once again, it goes back to matchups. So they're just not a good matchup for us. But still, talent-wise, we're there. Facilities-wise, we're there. NIL, we're pretty much there. Still, a little bit more grounds to go in all these respective categories, but it's pretty level now. And this should have been the year where you get it done, and you just didn't. And everybody who's saying, oh, well, We still got another year of Aller, and this was supposed to be a building year, and this was never supposed to be the year. Again, and I keep saying again, because there's so much that I've been saying this entire time, and it's all validated today. What I said in my preseason preview is, you don't know what the hell next year is going to look like. You know the layout of this season. You know that as of right now, Ohio State is the most beatable that they've ever been, dating back to before Urban Meyer, back when they had Luke Fickell as a head coach. They're the most beatable they've ever been. You did get Michigan at home, and they are the tougher opponent, so you got a benefit there. Both of those games were spaced out perfectly. And leading up to Ohio State, you essentially had 3 bye weeks. Northwestern, a bye week, and then UMass. That's 3 bye weeks to prepare for that game. It was laid out perfectly. Perfectly. And you had the roster. You had the deepest roster ever, and you had the best coaching staff ever. Like, this was the year to get it done, because now we're 10-2. I have no idea how this team is going to respond. And when I say we're 10-2, I'm assuming we're going to go 10-2. Obviously, that's not the case. We're 8-2 right now. But I have no idea how this team is going to respond after this loss. You saw how they responded after the Ohio State loss. I think they legitimately thought they were going to win that game, just like me, just like a lot of the Penn Staters, a lot of the beat reporters for Penn State. I mean, they hate Penn State the way they write about Penn State football. They say we're going 7-5 every single year. They thought that this was the year we were finally going to break through and beat Ohio State. Everybody thought on our end that we were going to beat the Buckeyes, and we didn't. And then they come out the next week, our team, and again, laid another egg against Indiana. Indiana, 2-5 team at home. I don't know how they're going to come out against Rutgers next week. I really don't. And then when we get to bowl season, what is there to play for in bowl season? Last year, the Rose Bowl meant something. Last traditional Rose Bowl ever. It was a younger team where they wanted to prove themselves, and they were clicking. And that was a big exclamation point on a great year. Here, what is this bowl season going to be about? They might opt out. The big players who are potentially going to the draft, they might not want to play in this game. There's just so much uncertainty now throughout the rest of the season. And you do wonder, will you have people transfer? Or are you going to have people not want to transfer to Penn State? That was a weird way I say that. But this creates so much uncertainty. Are you going to now lose a recruit because he sees what you did against Michigan and Ohio State, and he's saying, why the hell would I want to go to Penn State? It's not even like we were given a game in these two matchups. It wasn't even like it was a close fourth quarter game and we just couldn't pull through, but man, we're a good, promising team, and get us a couple more guys and we're going to be solid. No, we were terrible. We were god awful. And who's watching that game and it's like, yeah, I want to go play for James Franklin at Penn State? I don't know. I have no idea. I see us losing recruits. I see us losing out on transfers. I see us maybe having some important people transfer out of the program. Now, Diaz, who the hell knows if he's going to go somewhere else? Yurcich is going to be fired. We're going to probably have to get a new offensive coordinator. Like, it's all chaos, dude. It's all chaos. This was the year you needed to get it done, and you failed. You failed. I treated it like the Eagles last year, how it wasn't going to get more perfect. That was the team to win a Super Bowl, and you botched it. This year, Penn State needed to go 10 or I'm already getting in the frame of mind of saying that we need to go 10-2 because that's what we do every year. We needed to win 11 games, and you botched it. And we are going to be 10-2 now. And it just, it sucks, dude. It really, really does suck. I look at James Franklin differently. I overall look at this coaching staff differently. I look at the players differently in a way, but again, I just don't think it's the players. I think this is coaching, dude. Coaching, and I guess you could also say coach who should be getting a lot of blame is Taylor Stubblefield for not recruiting well at all at the wide receiver position when he was here, probably explaining why he's no longer with us on the team. So just bad. And you look at this season, man. Well, we'll do a full season recap later on in the year. What is there to be like excited about when it comes to this season? There's really nothing. Even last year, if we didn't have the Rose Bowl win, I could point back to the Purdue game. I'd say, yeah, that was a great team win. And it was an exciting game. And we came from behind. We rallied together on a tough scale, or a tough stage, rather. And we came back to win a very difficult challenge against a good Purdue team on the road. The Auburn game was awesome last year. I still go back and rewatch that game. If I'm about to go to sleep or I'm killing time on a train somewhere, sometimes I'll just turn on the Penn State Auburn game and rewatch that from last year. Like there were moments in that year, beating Minnesota 45-17 on the whiteout, throttled them. Like that was fun. That team was fun. I haven't had fun watching this team, with the exception of last week, which now I don't even know if I could say I had fun last week, because looking back, it kind of turned into nothing. I part of the reason why I was having fun was because I was like, oh my God, this is the game we needed going into Michigan. It paid off to be nothing. It's like a lot of people say this about like Star Wars, for example. I'm going to be nerdy for a second. The end of episode 7 of Star Wars ends with Rey holding out the lightsaber to Luke Skywalker. And it's this great epic ending. And then you see at the beginning of episode 8 that he just tosses it over his shoulder. And then people are like, oh, well, now I no longer like the ending of episode 7 because you ruined it. That's kind of how I feel right now. Yeah, I liked watching the Maryland game last week, but now you ruined it. You ruined it with that performance today. There hasn't been one game that I look back on. I'm like, yeah, that was awesome. That was incredible. Even the West Virginia game to start the year, I tweeted out earlier, the play to Keandre Lambert-Smith, I loved, where it's the long ball, first drive of the season, and we connect, and Keandre Lambert-Smith has this huge touchdown, place is going berserk. But after that, the game was kind of boring. It was frustrating. The offense then, too, was not able to really do much. There hasn't been a game, and we struggled against Illinois. We struggled for a decent chunk of the Northwestern game. We struggled against Indiana, and then we lose, to Ohio State and Michigan in terrible fashion. Terrible fashion. This season has just been horrific. It's been such a disappointing year, and I wonder how it's going to have ripple effects. I said it in the other post-game pod I did after Ohio State. There's only so many games that you can continue to lose like this if you're James Franklin before you start missing out on recruits. You're no longer getting the support from the university, from the donors, from the boosters. People want them. People want them out. People want them out. And if you're a recruit, why would you want to play for that? I don't know. I don't know. It was not a good showing for him today. Not a good showing for Yurcich. As I said earlier, I don't know how to grade Manny Diaz. I'd say he was, by far the best out of those three when you look at head coach, offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator. But just such a weird game. I point to that, that Donovan Edwards touchdown in the second quarter. And then I also point to that fumble by Drew, which I hate to keep being like the Drew Aller supporter, but I kind of have to be. And for the record, when I say that, I hate to be the Drew Aller supporter. I love Drew. It's not that I don't like Drew. It's just that so many people are coming at me saying, oh, how could you say that Drew Aller doesn't suck and blah, 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 blah. And I got to keep putting on this hat when I don't want to. We should not be having these conversations. The fumble he had, his fault. He fumbled the football. But it was legitimately the first time all season where we were requiring him, forcing him to run the football. We waited until week 11 against Michigan, the best team on our schedule, to say, Drew, we're going to need you to run the football. That's what happens. That's what happens when you give an inexperienced runner the keys to run the football and say, oh, yeah, you're running a QB draw. Otherwise, I thought he did a really solid job on his feet. It was in the first half, it was a completely new element to the game that really shook things up, because in the Ohio State game, we didn't have it. And when he dropped back to pass and there was nobody open, what was he going to do? Here, he's like, I'll tuck it and run for a couple of yards. I'll at least get positive yardage, stay ahead of the sticks. There were some points he got a first down. Even that fumble, technically, he did get the first down on it. I thought that he did a really solid job, had the touchdown where he was able to run it in on the QB draw. So once he fumbled it, I think it completely changed the game. I say the Donovan Edwards touchdown changed the game because it was really deflating, and because at that point you knew Michigan could just run the football the rest of the day and they were going to be totally fine. Even if they didn't score the rest of the day, they had a lead and they were just going to milk that and not give the ball back to us. And when I say not give the ball back to us, through turnovers. Because, yeah, there was no way we were going to force a turnover against that rushing. It just wasn't going to happen. But I say that play was a key play of the game. And then the Drew Aller fumble, because once that happened, I think we kind of stopped utilizing him on his legs. I feel like he was uncomfortable using his legs. And we went back to that same offense as against Ohio State, where we were just basic and boring and predictable, and we couldn't do anything. Couldn't do anything. So just a pathetic game. Pathetic, embarrassing. This has probably been way longer than 30 minutes. I don't know if there's anything else I should point out aside from the fact that, yeah, I was right about all this. I was right about all of this. Even this week, I was like, listen, I'm going to root for my team. I'm going to convince myself that we're going to win every single week, no matter who we're playing against and no matter how bad we are, how good we are. But this was not the game to win. This was not the matchup. They had us figured out. We couldn't do anything. There was no improvement whatsoever from the Ohio State game. And if we did want to win one of these two games, it would have had to have been the Ohio State game. And I can't wait to see Michigan beat Ohio State. That at least would be some consolation for me, because at least I would be able to point back and say, yeah, I was right about that. We should have beat Ohio State. They are very beatable. And especially going into the big house, I don't see any chance that they win that game. Number one team in the country right now. They deserve it. But they're a poser in my eyes. And if you're Penn State, hey, you lost to the number one team and the number three team in the country, as Franklin said. My God, I just don't see any upside to this. This season has been a total disaster. And I'm just going to curl into a ball the rest of the day, I think. I've pretty much said my piece. I feel better now. But, yeah, I'm still extremely distraught, and I will do nothing for the rest of the day. I'm just going to curl up and maybe cry a little bit, but we'll see. Anyway, that's all I got. Penn State loses 24-15 to Michigan, and we'll see what happens against Rutgers next week. But until then, this has been Connor Griffin signing off. It's always let's go 1-0. But this sucks right now. I'll catch you next week. Bye.